In this episode, SpaceX delays the launch of Starlink V1L9, the British government and India's Bharti Global acquire a significant stake in OneWeb, and in Boca Chica, SpaceX gets closer to static fire tests with SN5. Last week Tuesday, June 30th, SpaceX completed cryogenic pressure tests on SN5, filling the tanks with liquid nitrogen. SpaceX or Elon haven't yet confirmed what pressure the tank achieved. However, given the company's decision to progress with testing this week, we can probably infer that the tank achieved an acceptable number by SpaceX's standards. Over the weekend, the company installed what appears to be Raptor SN27 on Starship SN5. 150-meter hop coming soon. It looks like SpaceX is now targeting Friday, July 10th for static fire tests, and a 150-meter hop test could potentially follow soon after. Road closures for the 150-meter hop test are currently scheduled for July 13th through July 15th. While SpaceX prepares for another round of testing with SN5, a lot of work has been happening on the construction site lately. The walls of the Super Heavy high bay have started going up, and quite rapidly at that. And Zeus seems to be getting quite comfortable at the site as well. Starlink update. This week, Wednesday, July 8th, SpaceX was scheduled to launch another 57 satellites for its Starlink constellation, as well as 2 satellites for Earth observation company BlackSky. The launch, though, this time was delayed due to weather. It appears that SpaceX may now be targeting July 11th for the launch of Starlink V1L9. The launch will bring the total number of Starlink satellites to just about 600. While SpaceX continues to stay committed to building out its mega constellation at a rapid rate, it appears that a company with a similar strategy is now back in the race. British government and Bharti Global to acquire a 45% stake in OneWeb. Last week Friday, July 3rd, it was announced that a consortium including the British government and India's Bharti Global have won a bid in an auction for the acquisition of global communications company OneWeb. OneWeb's strategy is almost identical to the one that SpaceX has with Starlink. Like SpaceX, the company plans to provide low-latency, high-bandwidth global broadband internet coverage. The company's headquarters are based in London, while its satellite manufacturing operations are based in Florida. So far, OneWeb has launched 74 satellites for its constellation, all on Soyuz 2 launch vehicles. The company originally planned for a constellation of around 650 satellites, in 18 polar orbit planes at an orbital altitude of 1,200 kilometers. The company also filed an application to the FCC to expand its network to as many as 48,000 satellites. Since its founding, OneWeb has managed to raise over $3.4 billion from investors, including $2 billion in funding from Masayoshi Son's SoftBank. Earlier this year, back in March, after failure to secure additional funding, OneWeb filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. According to a statement released via OneWeb, the British government and India's Bharti Global have committed to provide more than $1 billion to acquire OneWeb and fund a full restart of the company's business operations. To break down that number a bit, both the UK and Bharti Global have paid $500 million each for a 45% stake in the company. The remaining 10% will be owned by creditors. The UK's decision to acquire a stake in OneWeb at first appears strategic. As part of Britain's exit from the European Union, or Brexit, the UK also walked away from involvement in the EU's Galileo program, a global navigation satellite system similar to that of the US GPS. The UK instead decided it would pursue its own global navigation satellite system. This announcement was made back in 2018. The cost of developing a network, though, of this scale is not cheap. It's been estimated to be around £5 billion. Thus, in an attempt to reduce costs, in May of this year, the British government announced that it was considering cheaper alternatives, namely the development of a low Earth orbit sat-nav system. In addition to this, according to a June 2020 article by the Financial Times, the US, who is a partner with the UK in the Five Eyes Intelligence Alliance, encouraged the UK not to replicate the GPS constellation. Instead, in effect, US officials saw advantages in pursuing a LEO constellation as it could potentially provide dissimilar redundancy, as well as improve on some of the weaknesses of GPS. GPS is easy to jam and expensive to maintain. Some industry analysts, though, have expressed concerns about whether a constellation of LEO satellites can support sat-nav capabilities similar to that of GPS. For context, GPS satellites and other global navigation satellite systems operate in MEO, at an orbital altitude of around 20,000 kilometers. In a statement made to The Guardian, space policy expert at the University of Leicester, Dr. Bleden Bowen, had this to say: "If you want to replace GPS for military-grade systems, where you need encrypted, secure signals that are precise to centimeters, I'm not sure you can do that on satellites as small as OneWeb's." Bowen continued, "It's bolting an unproven technology onto a mega constellation that's designed to do something else. It's a tech and business gamble." There has been some research done on the problem though. This 2016 paper by a group of researchers at Stanford seems to outline one possible method as to how it can be achieved. But again, as Bowen's statement says, this isn't flight proven just yet. The UK-based Satellite Applications Catapult is currently working on a white paper which outlines how some of the satellites could employ sat-nav capabilities. It should be interesting to see how OneWeb evolves given the acquisition. Satellite constellations of this scale are notoriously hard, but if successful, both parties should benefit significantly from the acquisition, particularly Bharti Global, who through its ownership of Bharti Airtel, the world's third largest mobile provider, has access to a customer base greater than more than 425 million people. The US bankruptcy court is expected to approve the sale of OneWeb by Friday, July 10th, and the deal is expected to close by the fourth quarter of the year, pending US regulatory approval.